Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something really fascinating. How does science actually study the vibrant, messy, and honestly profound human experience beyond just cold, hard statistics? We are exploring qualitative research and how it acts as the essential color on the canvas of fields like medicine.
All right, let's kick things off with a quote that hits the nail right on the head. Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. It's usually attributed to Albert Einstein, and man, it perfectly sets up our whole theme for this explainer. Numbers alone, they just can't capture the full breadth of the human experience. As you'll see, if we only rely on what we can put in a spreadsheet, we're leaving out a massive, absolutely essential part of the story.
So think of quantitative data like a black and white photo, the quanta. These are your cold facts, right? Mass, weight, volume, the raw numbers. But qualitative research, that's the vibrant, full-color spectrum right next to it, the qualia. This is where we actually find the vivid colors of human existence, stuff like pain, despair, hope, joy, and love. I mean, if life is full of all these amazing colors, why on earth should our research only be in black and white? So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with going beyond the numbers, then defining qualitative research, adding color to medicine, looking at 5 methods of exploration, and finally, collecting the human experience.
Okay, part 1. Beyond the numbers, and why data just isn't enough.
The big takeaway here is the sheer contrast between these two approaches. Quantitative research is what we call reductionist. It tries to isolate variables, kind of like studying one single gear in a machine to see how it works in a totally controlled, contrived environment. Qualitative research, though, it's holistic. It doesn't just want to stare at the gear, it wants to know how the whole engine sounds, feels, and performs out on the open road in a totally naturalistic setting. So making sweeping generalizations isn't the main goal here. Deep, meaningful understanding is.
Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you're at a baseball game. The fan with a quantitative mindset sees a home run and estimates, wow, that hit was over 400 feet. That's a pure measurement. But the fan with a qualitative perspective, they're calling it poetry in motion, noticing the player is just in a class by himself. One person is measuring the physical event, while the other is experiencing the meaning, the art of it. Both are completely valid, but they tell totally different stories, don't they?
Moving right along to part 2, defining qualitative research and focusing on the human element.
So, what actually is it? Well, qualitative research is all about collecting and analyzing non-numerical data. We're talking text, video, audio, transcripts, the whole shebang. It's a completely different academic paradigm used across the humanities, social sciences, and health sciences. Rather than trying to test old theories with math, it leans on words, stories, and observations to gather really in-depth insights about human concepts, opinions, and experiences. Instead of just testing what we think we already know, it opens the door to discovering realities we didn't even know existed.
Let's look at part 3, adding color to medicine, specifically in high-stakes scenarios. Here's a question for you. What does a car crash actually mean to the people involved, and how does it reshape their reality? Really think about that for a second. Asking that question jolts us out of looking at a crash as just another transportation statistic, right? It forces us to confront the actual human cost and the incredible ripples it sends through a person's entire life.
See, a quantitative researcher might look at a collision and ask, okay, how many accidents happen at this intersection? Or what was the exact speed of the impact? But a qualitative researcher, they ask entirely different questions. They want to explore the sociocultural context, the lived trauma of survivors who are facing months of rehab, and even the emotional toll on the healthcare workers who first arrive on the scene.
To put this into perspective, let's look at a fascinating study from 2003, where researchers sat down with 48 young black male survivors of interpersonal penetrating violence. By simply listening to their stories through in-depth interviews, they uncovered something absolutely profound that no hospital chart could ever capture: a deep, central fear of death. They actually discovered that the way a doctor spoke to these patients directly influenced their perception of physical pain. It really highlighted how transformative a provider's role can be in addressing that intense fear. Pure numbers would completely, literally miss this marginalized reality.
Or imagine the absolute chaos of a code blue, a sudden cardiac or respiratory arrest.
Now, quantitative data is undeniably vital here, for sure. It tracks survival rates, response times, medication efficacy, but qualitative research steps in to explore the chaotic, lived experience of the resuscitation team right there in that room, or the lasting psychological aftermath for the patient and their family. It adds that absolutely vital human context to the life-saving effort.
All right, moving to part 4, 5 methods of exploration, or what we can call the researcher's brushes.
So to capture all these complex experiences, researchers rely on a distinct set of pathways or methodologies. Depending on the specific type of human experience they're trying to understand, they'll actually select an entirely different approach. Let's quickly break down the main ones you'll see. First up, if a researcher wants to understand a culture, they use ethnography, literally packing a bag and immersing themselves in an environment, like living with a remote tribe for months. Narrative research, on the other hand, dives deep into human life stories, like carefully gathering the emotional, personal journeys of cancer survivors. Then we have grounded theory. This is perfect for totally uncharted territories. Instead of starting with a hypothesis, researchers build brand new theories directly from empirical data, like investigating the hidden root causes of systemic medical errors. Phenomenology seeks to understand the very essence of intense specific human experiences, such as the surreal nature of near-death experiences. And finally, a case study provides an exhaustive, in-depth look at a specific, bounded phenomenon, like studying the mental health impact of social media on a specific local demographic.
And finally, part 5, collecting the human experience and how we actually gather this data.
Researchers in this field have to rely on incredibly hands-on tools. We're talking about systematically collecting data through deep, one-on-one interviews to capture personal narratives. They use both participant and non-participant observation, they take meticulous fieldwork notes, and they run focus groups. Honestly, these tools are inherently messy and require immense human empathy, which is a far cry from just running an automated data scraping script.
One super powerful tool is the focus group, bringing together maybe 6 to 10 targeted respondents. And what makes this so valuable is the interactive discussion itself. You get to capture the collective insights, the spontaneous debates, and the shared meanings that only emerge when people actually talk to each other. That is something you just can't get from a standard multiple-choice survey.
And when it comes to observation and fieldwork, the researcher doesn't just watch safely from afar. Especially in participant observation, they become deeply embedded in the environment. They write incredibly rich, detailed descriptions of activities, behaviors, and interpersonal interactions. They're genuinely trying to understand the world from the inside out, capturing the full context of what's happening around them.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We live in a world that is absolutely obsessed with data, metrics, and quantitative dashboards. But based on what we've explored today, ask yourself, what colorful, vital human experiences are we failing to count? The next time you look at a statistic, remember the vibrant qualia hidden behind it. Keep seeking the full picture and keep learning.